Hello everybody and welcome to the Spotlight on Good People. We're on location today at a very special place. It's our special guest today, an artist whose work has captured the heart, the soul, and the spirit of communities around the world. Paul Arsenault. Hopefully I said that right, the French version. For decades, Paul has been more than just a painter. He's a storyteller, a preservationist, and an ambassador for culture through his art. Known for his vibrant and detailed landscapes and seascapes, Paul's canvases are windows into the beauty of nature, history, and the people that make each place unique, including our beautiful Naples. Paul's artistic visions remind us all to truly slow down and take in the natural beauty around us. He's truly a pioneer. He got to Naples just a few years before our family. My father brought us down here when Naples was just a small little town with some great snook fishing, and you could actually drive on the beach. It's such an honor for me to sit down and have a great conversation with Paul. In this conversation, we're going to explore the inspirations behind his work, his journey as an artist, and the legacy he hopes to leave behind. So grab a cup of coffee or an espresso like me, and get ready to be inspired by the passion and artistry of Paul. Enjoy.
Well, ever since I closed the gallery, everyone thinks I'm dead. So it's nice when someone bothers to look it up. Which is that's all it is. It's just and being in the first corner of Naples when it was first established, because the only reason to come to Naples in 1888 was the opening of the Naples Hotel, which was across the street on that corner. And
it was. So that's where it was, across the street.
It was across the street, and directly in front of it was the pier, where the little trunk, where your trunk was wheeled down from the dock of the pier to the lobby of the hotel.
Because they would come here by boat.
For 30 years, you couldn't come by car. You only could come by boat. So the first corner was where we've been living for the last 42 years.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that. I'd heard it before, but never put it together like that.
And in fact, when there was an announcement of the family that built the place that was coming to town from up north, Philadelphia, the Sloanes, the little newsletter that the hotel provided for the hotel was that, the Sloanes have come down from Philadelphia across the street. It was known as Ocean View Junction, that intersection, because the cupola faced out over the pier, and so
What is a cupola?
A cupola is in my book the little box observation, with a little roof on it. That's a cupola where people would be looking out. Well, here, I'll show you what it looks like. It's exactly. This is the hotel, and it faced 12th Avenue South, where the pier is. This is the cupola.
Oh, okay.
So this would present the vantage of the Ocean View Junction. So this was the intersection right here. We're across the street from it.
Wow. Wow.
So that's just a little part.
And only by water for many years.
Only by water, yeah, right, for many, many years, because the road was just a sandy path.
And the Sloanes from Philadelphia, which I didn't know. Would that be Sloan Kettering?
No,
that's not.
No. The son was the first private real estate guy, real estate office, which was a pump house moved to the alley of the property, where you could pay your rent rolling down the window, going down the alley to A.C. Sloan, who was the first private real estate office on the property. He was in the Sloan Senior was in silver mines and different things, And the name of the property was Tecopa, named after the Indian chief in the proximity of where he hit the silver that paid for the property. And he built 4 or 5 homes in and around Old Naples, where we were. So anyway, that's just...
Didn't know that name in the history of Naples. Or that they're from Philly, too.
Right.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
So, well, I guess to give people a sense, if you could tell us your story.
Tell my story?
Sure.
Well, I am. I was raised in the South Shore of Boston, and went to art school, Art Institute of Boston. 2 weeks after graduating, signed on as a deckhand on a research vessel out of Woods Hole Oceanographic. We worked up in New England for a while, and then they sent us to Florida. And in '73. November, we sailed into the Indian River Inlet at Fort Pierce and worked with the Smithsonian. And we were asked to collect marine samples from the Gulf Stream to the Indian River Lagoon, which was projecting a huge population explosion. So they just wanted to assess where the marine life was in the region, and the Smithsonian were the ones taking that project, and we were gathering samples for them. And I came from a town that had an attitude about Florida. Why would anyone want to go to Florida? This is up in New England. There's no seasons. It's all flat, and it's where people go in their final chapter. Anyway, coming to Florida in November, leaving brown, cold, raw, gray New England, and rich coconut swaying, flowers blooming, pelicans gliding, mullet jumping. Oh my God, this was a beautiful place. And I fell in love with the community there. And then when I did discover Naples, I signed off the ship, and that was back in January of '74. So as of this week, it was 51 years ago. Wow. So that's what brought me here.
Wow. So did you have an interest in marine life, or what got you on the ship to begin with, and when did?
Well, I was always drawn to the waterfront. My grandfather had lumber schooners. My father was a sailor, and I grew up in this picturesque harbor town, Hingham, in the South Shore of Boston. And I could paint when I went to art school, but I didn't have much knowledge of life, so I thought it would be good to sign on a ship and have a little adventure. And I just let the chips fall as they may as a starting point. And it was a wonderful catapult that brought me to the tropical light, which is something I've been part of and one with ever since, while maintaining my New England appreciation. And what Naples afforded was an opportunity for travel, world travel. And I was very fortunate to be able to take full advantage of that.
Well, what was the time in your life where you knew that art was your calling? It was going to be what you were going to do and do?
Well, it's one of those funny stories that in life, when I was 5 and a half, it was Lincoln's birthday. It was way before kindergarten class. I turned on the TV to a show that you drew along with Captain Bob. It was Lincoln's birthday. So I drew along with Captain Bob the portrait of Abraham Lincoln. And when my mother came downstairs and I showed her the portrait of Lincoln, the blood left her face. She freaked and started running from room to room. Who's in my house? Who did this? And I'm just sitting there looking at her, freaking out, thinking someone else did this. And so it gave me a lot of confidence that with a paper and pencil, I could be, I could generate a lot of emotion. And it was something I was good at, and I just kind of kept it up.
Wow. Wow. So that impression at 5 is seeing the reaction of your mother of something that you created. You could see the emotion that what you did drew out of her. And this just lit something inside you.
It did.
Yeah. And you were just had a natural gift, obviously. You were,
Well, my grandmother was a painter hobbyist, and my aunt was even more of a professional, but her true profession was nursing. But as a nurse up in Anchorage, her Christmas cards alternated every year between Inuit children and Eskimo children. And it was so wonderful to see the adventure that she had while simply painting these kids that were so foreign to what we knew, what I knew. And she was able to use those note cards and postcards as fundraisers for the different nonprofits that helped these kids.
wow.
And it was a nice little message that I've taken on myself, utilizing my art in a fundraising way and in a way to call attention to certain organizations that need to be known and their purpose needs to be told. So it's an excuse for that. And
you've always been affiliated in some form with a cause or
and Helen helped.
Wow, that's amazing. So it also took, I think, some courage to just get on a boat and then get off a boat in the middle of, Naples in 1974. Not much here.
No, there was not. And but the thing is, I'd saved a little money on the ship, and I was eager to go as far as just to paint the scene, because it was a beautiful place, and I didn't really think of an added concern. The first thing I did in the spring of '74, after my first season, was back where Campiella's outside dining was Swan Court.
Oh, yes.
And Swan Court, I rented a couple of chicken wire screens from the Art Association, had a little art show. And my housemate was a photographer for the Naples Star, the alternative newspaper. And so he was easily able to present a professional-looking press package when I had my art show at Swan Court. And I had, and the first person to come by was Elsie Upham, one of the founders of the Naples Art Association. She bought my first painting, which was a really nice nod because she would have been considered the grande dame of painters, of Naples in particular. And it was terrific to get her acknowledgement from what I learned about her afterwards. But I was able to make a go of it enough. My paintings were extremely discounted, but that was okay. It was coming away with a fund that could keep things moving along until the next one. So I just I never really bothered about the I don't know what you call it, but the concern I should have by just going for an art career without having any kind of regular income.
Yeah.
But I just felt confident that I'll make it work one way or another, and I was hell bent. And of course, there was a lot of peanut butter and sardines, to keep things going. But Naples was a town that if they liked it, they bought it. You didn't have to go through the song and dance you would up in New England, which is, like pulling teeth to sell a painting, or was at the time.
Yeah. Well, there's something about that because my father, in a similar fashion, when we packed up and left Philadelphia and came here in '77, which there wasn't a lot here, but it's the same thing. He didn't have a job before he got here. There was no nest egg. It was in our motorhome that we lived in. But he was so in love with the area. And I guess in some ways, like you, believed in what he did enough that he knew he'd make it work out. Didn't have any sort of a nest egg to rely on. He knew that once we got here, he had to start cutting hair right away, and get to work. But I don't know. That takes something because there's something inside of, like I call it, pioneers, and I think you are to do that because it wasn't like you got hired to come here.
No. Well, one of those crazy shows like on Merv Griffin or I don't know, one of those kind of daytime shows, had a guy on, and he basically said, listen, you don't have to be a powerful bodybuilder to be a confident person and doing what you want to do, going out in this world. All you really have to do is to use your mind and to be quicker than the next guy. And if you can guide the conversation, and if you can guide the circumstance with just thinking about the comfort zone of moving towards your next goal. I ended up not having any nest egg myself, and I was required to move around a lot as far as painting or just shifting locations with Boston, Cape Cod, where I was living, even down to Florida, back and forth. It required not only drive-away cars when it came to sometimes when I had to come to Florida or to go back to New England, but I hitchhiked a lot. And as long as I could guide the conversation, I felt very confident that I could make my way without having to be dreading, oh my God, now what's going to happen to me? It never occurred to me. It's just guide the conversation and keep it moving forward. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize you had that in your background too, as well. You commuting back and forth, hitchhiking between.
And it's not like I did a regular routine of snowbirding. I did travel a lot that did require hitchhiking early on. And I had some wonderful experiences with just the early on days of exploring back when. Yeah. And I learned early that in guiding the conversation, you can really learn a lot if you ask the right questions. Yeah. And so I would love the adventure that was to come in going a long distance in a hitchhiking situation to a certain degree. Sure. I mean, if it was raining and urban, it was no fun. Yeah. But you just plan it and guide it and go. Yeah.
But all of that was a part of what had you be who you are and had you create what you created.
Right.
So it was part of the journey that made it. Yeah, I think of your what was it like, or what would it be like? Were there time periods where you were up against, I've got to make something happen here. I've got to get some income here. I've got to make the ends meet. Did you ever get to a blocking point where what do I create now that's gonna work so that I can feed myself? Or was there ever that juncture for you, or was it just always seemed to happen? You were that creative side of you was always able to flow.
Well, there was, several times when things were lean. What I did do early on, with after I was affiliated with several of the galleries here in town, I realized, being a resident of Naples and only getting a 1 week exhibition and then maybe an extra week as a partial exhibition was not enough to maintain as a local artist and anticipate a consistent income. It was just I had to basically shake the bushes in a more far-reaching way. And one of my first fundraisers was working with the Heritage Foundation that had just refurbished the depot back in 1980, and so I had an exhibition there, which was a fundraiser for the hurricane devastated Dominica, which was an island that I lived in down in the West Indies, and had just been totally decimated. And we did a fundraiser for them, and it was utilizing the organization, the Heritage Foundation, and it was just getting a network going that would be something beyond myself and the proprietor of the place. The next fundraiser happened with the Conservancy, where I did 3 years in a row a Conservancy exhibition, and that really brought about a wonderful introduction to the community, where I had a huge number of people come to my exhibitions at the Conservancy, and and from that point on, I was an entity and a contender for nonprofit fundraising options.
Okay.
So it went from there to hospice and to the Alliance for the Mentally Ill, and for a bunch of different organizations that were both humanitarian, environmental, and preservation. You know, so that's kind of been, you know, my way.
Is that when a sort of theme evolved for you, or was there always a?
Well, it was just, you know, concerns that I've had both with the environment and with just the way certain situations with the Alliance for the Mentally Ill is a really great organization for someone who has bipolar people in their families, where you really don't have many options. You just have to know what the options are. And, you know, I have family members, and it was something I could do with my art to acknowledge and to be a part of the story, and what I could do for my, you know, my own family members in that regard. So there was that, and I have, as I go, I do find different situations that I can be helpful with. We're working on trying to transform the baggage car at the Naples Depot Museum into a Black History Museum. And it's a story that needs to be told, especially in this town. And the baggage car is most appropriate. That was the ticket to ride, so to speak, for the Black population to get a job that had benefits. And that was a very important part of how to take things to the next level with the Black community. Anyway, we're working on those kind of things, and it goes on and on with just as you go through life, things become important to you that once you learn the story, oh my God, what can I do? And you know, and I find art is a great vehicle for that way of introducing the story, the idea, the image.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that in talking to you before we started here, as you were describing some of the work that you've done, there's such a rich story behind each piece that I found so fascinating. That there's this, it's not just, oh, I'm going to go paint that house. There's more to everything that you do. What goes into your process of creating what you create? What's behind it? Like how do you just suddenly say, I'm going to do that, and here's why, or what happens inside you?
Well, at this stage of the game, being this week my 51st year as a professional painter.
Congratulations! Wow, that's awesome. Wow.
There is a certain opportunity when you have that round number of 50 years to assess, well, okay, 50 years. So what's that mean? What is the significance of that? How can I make it something that's relevant and not just the fact that, I'm an old white guy that's been doing it for 50 years. So basically it's putting together these different 50-year retrospective shows. I have one going on right now at the Marco Museum. It's my 50-year retrospective. It'll be open until February 15th. It's been up until October 1st. And it's a great opportunity to show the example of 50 years of painting. For instance, this painting right here of the old Marco Inn. I painted that in 1975. Wow. The invitation for my exhibition is the same building from the other side. And now here's a building from 1883. It happens to be condemned right now, but its history is remarkable. It's a beautiful old building, and it could be gone very soon. Anyway, my show is a show of paintings of 50 years in the region. The curator of the show didn't necessarily want to take my paintings from far afield, from anywhere else but South Florida. She wanted to make sure that people of South Florida could see my 50 years depicting our immediate region. So it incorporates places from Sarasota to Fort Pierce to Key West, but concentrating on, it's Marco-centric, Naples and Everglades City, Chokoloskee, and all in between.
Wow. So this can be seen?
Yeah, you can go there right now, and make sure you call ahead to make sure of the dates and the time. But it's I'm very proud of it because it was beautifully curated, beautifully hung, and it's very immersive. And I'm getting all these people that do bother to go from Naples to Marco saying, "Oh my God, Paul, not only thanks for introducing me to the museum, but your paintings told such a story I had no idea." So the captions really have played a lot of the positive feedback because of the added dimension that the image didn't show. But oh my God, that's the story, and that's what's kind of fun about being able to put together a show that not only tells the story, but shows the story.
Yeah. I think that's so special, especially in our area here where, so many people have migrated here over the years from 74 till now. And in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years, they just keep coming because it's such a special place. I mean, Naples has got such a charm. It's so, I feel so blessed to live here and to tell the story for anybody who's, newer, and newer could be 20 years to me or you, 20, 25, 30 years to still, I'm still learning about the area and these little hidden gems and these charming little places to go visit, what to do on a Sunday. You have so many little golden nuggets that you've captured in a way that we don't even know are amongst us or that we live around. So, what are some of your favorites that you've captured from the area that you...
Well, there is, it's funny, I came out with a book, My Journey as a Painter right there. And it has paintings from all over the place, all over the world. And people came up to me when it first came out and said, Paul, I had no idea you left Old Naples, and it's because of and it's not like I wanted to be sentimental with Old Naples or anything. It's just early on, I just loved the idea of the little, the cottages, the alleys, and especially when early on, the little cottages that were built behind the main houses, those little cottages were kind of sprinkled in the backyard, regardless of setbacks, so that sometimes you have this wonderful little charm of these nestled little cottages that kind of looks like the Bahamas because it's pre-setback and all that. And back during the Depression, the locals, to get by during the Depression, would rent out their main house and slap up a little cottage in the back for their family to live in. And that was a lot of the motivation. So a lot of when you ask me what are the pockets that are left, there are, a lot of people love the little alleys and those little pockets of the old neighborhood that are still there, that are quickly disappearing. When it comes to the beach, it's I love Wiggins Pass and Barefoot Beach because it's all native material. It's all natural flora fauna with the beach and the pass, looking across to Wiggins State Park from Barefoot. It's my favorite beach you can go to without a boat. And so there are just different little places that I don't want to give up my favorite little getaway spots. But the fact of it is, when you when you're at peace and you're looking hard and you're looking in the general scheme of things, we have a special place here with weather and with the proximity to nature. We've got the 10,000 islands, we've got the Gulf, we've got the Everglades, and when you learn it and when you can appreciate the specialness it can offer, we have a real jewel here, and so we just have to focus on that and the nourishment it gives us.
Yeah, you mentioned Chokoloskee. Say more about that, because many people don't know about Chokoloskee.
Well, Chokoloskee is it's one of those little places that you couldn't drive there until 55 when they made the causeway using the shell mounds that were prevalent there from the Calusas, the early mound builders. The early Smallwood store is there. It's a museum, frozen in time. It's not a Disney version. It's the real deal. That will lock you into pioneer living in Florida, in Southwest Florida, in a big way. It's highly regarded as a jewel of historic pioneer structure.
How do you get there? Where is it?
Oh, okay.
Exactly?
Everglades City is 5 miles away, and you go to Everglades City coming off of the Tamiami Trail, and that's a few miles in from the trail is Everglades City, and that was the county seat. That's when Baron Collier, when he wanted to break off half of Lee County, he said, we'll let you have Collier County if you put in the road to Miami. So he built the Tamiami Trail, establishing Everglades City as the county seat and where he built his operation for the building of the trail. And then 5 miles south of that is Little Chokoloskee, which was a happening spot back in the day, pioneering days.
Didn't know
Before. In fact, there was quite a colorful yet dark incident that happened with the desperado Ed Watson. Met his undoing right by the Smallwood store. He had been notorious for what was reputed to be his murders, and they finally found a body, and the townspeople met him and did him in.
Did justice right there.
Well, when he raised his shotgun, that gave them the license, and they said that when they did the autopsy, they got enough lead out of them to fill a coffee can.
The tea on chocolate. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Yeah, that has some legendary.
It goes on and on.
There.
Yeah.
That's great. I didn't know that was the Everglades City was the county seat too at one time.
Hurricane Donna changed it.
Okay.
So they brought it up here then. But the old hospital was there, and
really
the doctor's office.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was the old Everglades Inn, and of course the Rod and Gun.
Is that the Rod and Gun? Okay, the Rod and Gun.
Rod and Gun is different.
Okay,
and that's a place that had 5 presidents. Not many buildings from the 1800s in Florida had 5 presidents in it. Hemingway, Mick Jagger, Sean Connery,
really,
all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's had a happening history.
Wow.
Yeah.
5 presidents too. On top of that, yeah. So this area, we were also talking about. Well, actually, where you live, was only accessible by boat, and
for like 30 years, because it was just a badly rutted, sandy track that you couldn't comfortably drive consistently. So you took the boat.
And you have one of the paintings you showed me was the Calusa Indians, it looks like, coming to shore. And what area was that in, or where was that?
That was on the Naples beach. And what's kind of remarkable is that when you think of people from 800 years ago, 1200 years ago, living here in Florida, to have the wherewithal to dig a canal from virtually from the beach to the bay, to eliminate the 5 mile poling down and all those miles poling up into the oyster beds and up into the bay where they were after whatever they were after. They did a canal which was known by the early pioneers as the ditch, that went from virtually 9th Avenue South across to where kind of where Blue Provence is, the city dock.
Oh, wow. Really?
So it kind of cut across there. That was the canal. And what's kind of interesting is the painting that I did to kind of illustrate what it would look like with the Calusas portaging their cypress canoes up the beach onto the canal to cut across to the bay. They used my painting on the front of the archaeological magazine of the month of the quarterly,
Wow.
and it just came out this month, and so that they gave me the nod in my academic vision that put me on the cover. So that was a nice thing.
Yeah. Beautiful how you've captured so much of the unknown of the area. I think you've really done a great job of keeping it alive for people. And it's fascinating for me to hear this, having lived here so many years of my life, not knowing so much of what you're sharing with me, which I think is really cool. You'd also talked about, for people that that don't know, as I didn't know either, that these, whether it was the wealthy or whoever could afford to come here at the time, they'd come here by boat, and the Naples Pier was there to tender the boats, I guess, as they came in, or the people came in?
Well,
that
it
way?
was a steamship line, and that was part of the Naples company. They had a steamship line, and when Haldeman bought the plot of Naples, he got a couple of steamers with it, and he got the hotel and all the outbuildings, and I think it was for $50,000. And so, yeah, and the steamer came in from Fort Myers. And originally, it came in from Punta Gorda, and then, but then Fort Myers became the port for the steamers to then come to Naples.
Okay, and they would bring the people into the hotel there. You were telling me of how that process worked for people, because they couldn't get here any other way. They couldn't get here by.
No, they couldn't, and then they would charter boats. They would charter guides to take them fishing, because this town, for the Louisville crowd that it first established, where Haldeman was from, he had the Louisville Courier, the publication that advertised out to the Midwest what he deemed as Naples being the sportsman's paradise for endless game and fish, along with the incredibly warm weather and beautiful white sand beaches with swaying palms. So, and that's why when I first got here in 1974, the only license plates I saw were Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Midwest for the most part. Yeah. For
But I mean, and then they had these wonderful old Florida waterfront families that provided the guide pool for these visitors from up north coming down to want to go sport fishing. There was the tarpon, of course, which was the legendary Silver King, but there was the snook and everything else that was just so bountiful that anyone just trying halfway would be successful.
Yeah, and that was clearly one of the reasons why I know my father chose Naples, because we moved to Florida in 1977 knowing that, or not knowing where we'd end up. We were in a 30-foot motorhome living in it. We had sold everything back home, and anything as a 12-year-old that I had, I was told I had to sell at the garage sale, and because we were only living in this motorhome, and which was a great adventure. He took us on a lot of fun, and spent the summer driving up and down the west coast of Florida, down in the Keys, where he really wanted to be was in the Keys, because he thought the fishing was premier there.
That's
But
the
my mother said, no, there's no way we're raising the kids in the Keys. We're got to go somewhere else. So it was Sarasota, Naples, back and forth, and then did end up, fortunately, in Naples. And it was fishing that he was, that was why he left Philadelphia. The weather, of course, but he wanted to fish and hunt and be able to have that around. And snook back in the day were a great challenge. There were plentiful, but also snook were always like a challenge all the time.
I knew your dad as a really good snook fisherman, so he was good at it. So
yeah, absolutely. In fact, you mentioned the Star, and Zach, we have some of those. The paper that he talked about that was one of his launching pads, and so we'll have to put those up too, because we have, I think, in our boxes over there, we have some of the old articles out of the
great.
Star.
Nice.
And there's an article about his fishing and being a stylist and being a fisherman at the same time. There were his two things that his real passion. But this area I didn't know was known for, that people came here to for the sport of, I know tarpon was big, but and also I remember the mosquitoes were also a big thing then too. And I remember going to high school here and having the old DC-3 planes fly over and spray the area with the fuming, the I don't know. It was like it was so cool to see as a kid, but they're fumigating.
Yeah,
us
DDT.
with,
Yeah. It was, and they only came out when kids were just standing, waiting for the bus.
That's what it was.
Yeah. It was the health department and the school department weren't in sync there. And then and if they didn't get you with the planes, the trucks came
truck
by.
would come down the streets,
And then just kind of hover in the corner there where the kids were.
Yeah, remember that? Remember that? I could smell it right now. The fragrance of whatever they were spraying on us. And it was just fascinating for me to see these as a kid, seeing the planes fly over. Little did I know what was happening to our internal. What was happening to us? My mother smoked during pregnancy, so back then smoking was acceptable too. So it was different. My mother, and father both were smokers, and I remember Dr. Spano. I don't know if you know the Spanos.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, yeah, everybody knows the legendary Joe, Dr. Joe, who's still practicing now at this. They were good friends, and they had gone out to dinner together, and they all had come from work. It was the Sextons, the Spanos, and my parents, and they left at the same time. And on Central and 8th, I'm not sure which one on Central, Dr. Spano and my mother both left, but they were going different routes on the two roads. My mother looked down for a minute. She was leaving. She looked down to check the lighter to light a cigarette. And she looked up, the light had changed, and she broadsided Joe, Dr. Spano. Put him in the hospital, really bad. He was in, rough shape.
Wow.
And I remember her going to visit him often. He would still see her even after that. He would go visit him in the hospital, and they could smoke in the hospital. They were smoking, visiting Dr. Joe while he was in the hospital. And ever since that time, whenever they'd go out to dinner, the rest of them for the years after that, David Sexton would always say, "I'm going to skip out a little early on everybody." He would leave dinner early just to avoid my mother. But the old ways of Naples and the community, and the old stories. You talked about one of the other legends in the community, Mrs. Gaynor, who was one of my dad's first customers, who you knew her father, which I think is, the Gaynors were, I don't know, instrumental, or other pioneer legends in the community.
The
too.
Norrises, yeah.
Norris was it? Yes,
yeah.
That's right. Norris family, which there's the Norris Center. And so how did you meet him? How did you get to know the?
Well, back in 76, I had wanted to hang out, or I wanted to explore Key Waden Island, and so I knew that if I wanted to go there, and
were there houses on Key Waden then?
There was a couple of little camps, but it was pretty. Nothing was really happening. No one was out there in a regular way. Mm. And so I knew that if I wanted to go out there, it would be impossible to get permission to have a campfire and all that kind of thing. So a buddy of mine was visiting, college buddy, and he was a writer, and I just wanted to do a series of watercolors. So a buddy of mine here dropped us off on a boat about 4 miles down from the club. And so we just wanted to go and hang out and not be bothered. So we didn't show our tent on the beach. We kind of covered them up so you couldn't see any indication if you looked hard. Mm-hmm. So for the first week, it was unbelievable. I did watercolors, and it was just really a lot of fun.
What time of year was this?
This was in 76. It was just before New Year's in 76. So it was December 75. Mm. I mean, yeah, 75. So after the first week, this is unbelievable. This is great. And we had a lot of rice and onions, but, we were running out of the good stuff. But anyway, we thought, we can live another week out here, but we got to, replenish our water. And so we decided to, at 5 a.m, go to the pool house of the club, shower, shave, and get our jerry cans full of water. And as we were leaving the pool house, this old timer with his blazer with piping and a crest, and I swear he had a monocle on. He came in, and we said, "Oh, good morning," as we're carrying our jugs out. Oh, and he just didn't know what he was seeing. And my buddy had a blonde ponytail down to his waist, so we knew we weren't, guests. So anyway, we just bug out, and we're so psyched that we've got another week there, and we and just as we were saying, God, it's just too bad we don't have a couple of girls here to share this with, we kind of hear this giggling. And we're just kind of sitting back on the beach in front of our campsite, and here come these two gals. And we say hello, and we had just graduated from college. They were college girls. They were visiting one of their grandmothers annually, invited each other down to come and spend 2 weeks for their vacation with grandma. And they were doing their annual walk to the pass from the club. Mm. And so we're talking to the girls. Where's your boat? Well, we got dropped off. Where's your site? Well, we're hiding it. We don't want anybody to throw us off. I said, well, can we see it? I said, well, don't tell anybody. So we show them our site. I show them watercolors. And as we go out to the beach to send them off, all of a sudden this Marine Patrol comes flying by and stops and comes right to the shore and points to the girl, get back. And the girls say, oh, no, we're going south. And he goes, get back, get back. And all of a sudden, a helicopter comes from behind the island over us. And so we're just saying, Jesus, these girls are a little too troublesome. So we're kind of backing into the woods. The girls decide are obliged to go back to the club and not continue their walk. So we go through the week. We come back having to take the ferry back from the clubhouse to the shore. We are greeted by the manager of the club just at the beginning of the club property. And he starts screaming at us. We've seen you there with your campfire. You're going right to jail. The police will be waiting for you at the dock. And he said, hey, that's fine. We've had 2 wonderful weeks. Don't worry about it. And he was just very, very upset. And he just saying, yeah, you're going to be in jail tonight. Just want you to know. Fine. But we were just so blissed out. It was like no big deal. And he said, not only that, Mr. Norris wants to speak to you. So I said, okay, that's fine. We'll speak to Mr. Norris. Couldn't get a hold of him before, but
what a great way.
Anyway, expecting this big burly guy, proprietor, we opened the door and he's like Fred Astaire, He said, well, boys, you didn't have permission. Well, sir, we didn't figure we could get permission. We felt if we would, apology would be easier. And he goes, well, you got that right. He goes, well, what's in the portfolio? I said, I was doing watercolors out there. Yeah, let's see them. Hey, these are pretty good. And then he took me over to show him some of his cartoons. He was a cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune.
Really?
So he's just saying, oh, my God. This is great. And he basically told me a story. When I married my wife, she wasn't in line to, inherit the chairman of the boardship. But when the one who was supposed to inherit it didn't, suddenly I, the cartoonist, became that person. Oh, so anyway, he goes, what were you guys eating out there anyway? So, well, as a matter of fact, there was a great run of those fighting conchs, and we figured we'd get a couple of dozen each with every high tide. When you boiled them out, beat them with a stick and fried them with onions, they were pretty good. And we caught a fish once in a while. He goes, oh my God, here's $20 a piece. Go to George and the Dragon and have a steak on me. And so, that's what we did. So when we go outside, all of a sudden there's a group of people out there. And in the front of the group of people, there were 2 girls, the 2 girls that we had met. I said, what happened? And they took us to a side and said, well, as a matter of fact, the moment that the old man saw you in the pool house, there was a body that it was turned up in Marco. And so there was suddenly an all points bulletin for any questionable people in the Marco Naples islands realm. And so all of a sudden these girls are walking by these what they could see were people on the island having campfires every night. So we were suspects. And so all of a sudden these two girls leaving the camp, Key Waden camp, were potentially in harm's way with an all-point bulletin. Fortunately, by the time the girls were picked up, they had caught the guy. So we weren't routed out.
Yeah, wow.
So anyway, Lester Norris says, "Hey, I just met this artist, this watercolor artist that was out here, and you got to see his work." So that's how Lyle Gaynor was introduced to me through her father.
Oh, that was his. Oh my gosh! Wow, what an amazing story. That's incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah, no,
wow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't by.
No, it wasn't at a cocktail party.
That's great. That's even better. I love that. And the fact I didn't know that was his background as well. That he was a cartoonist.
He was a cartoonist for Chicago Tribune. Yeah.
Wow.
And he had no intention of heading Texaco, but he ended up doing it.
That was their.
That was their. Yeah.
Where the fortune was from Texaco. Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. That's incredible. All the years I knew her, I didn't know that, and to hear that story about her and their family there, and the fact that he could appreciate your work too.
He did.
He could see and appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, that.
And Lau became a very nice collector, a very good collector. Mm-hmm. In fact, she gave me back a couple of really wonderful pieces that were terrific to have back. She knew that they would be important, so she was terrific all the way around.
What a special woman! Yeah,
very
she was,
special.
As one of my dad's first customers, and loyal till the very end. She was
loyal is the word.
Yeah, it's just so special. Yeah. Another one of those pioneers or special people in our community. And this is kind of neat. What I think about having this opportunity to talk to you is kind of special, because usually you just get little sound bites of people. You don't get to really hear the full story of what, we talked about the media right now, and the local media, which, we get to hear about what restaurants are opening or what restaurants are closing, seems to be the headline of the day, or, a traffic accident, which usually gets a lot of clicks, I suppose, but not to really get to see. You talked about the Star, back in the day. The Star was something that was special about that was the way it featured the community and the people in the community in a special way.
They did stories.
Yeah. And to be able to hear your story, because I truly was, when I heard that I was going to have an opportunity to talk to you, I thought, how honored I am to have you, because to get to talk to you, because there are a select group of pioneers, and I call them pioneers, that were here back in the day, and you were certainly one of those people. But you've been all over the world. You've been in so many places, and places I didn't even realize in researching you. And when you're showing me the book, and how many parts of the world you've been in, and even that you lived in Hana, right? You lived in Hana, which is that.
And it's kind of nice. I have an 8-foot painting over the front desk of the Hana Hotel.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the only way I could do that painting was to present my case to the elders there, the Hawaiians. It's a Hawaiian community, and there's Hawaii, and there's tourism, but there's Hawaii, the island, the culture, the native situation. That is, they really got screwed when their island was just taken over. It was absolutely an illegal takeover. Even our president said it was illegal at the time. So there is a certain frustration, especially when all the land is owned by non-natives. A lot of it is, and so there is. But fortunately, I had a dear friend who was Hawaiian who did the ceremonial halis, the structures, whether they were for living or ceremonial, and when there was a big event, a big ceremony, and he had a special holly that he had just done, he would want me to go and paint it, and then which was an honor to be included. And when his Hawaiian friends, what's the haole doing here? You know, the non-Hawaiian. Well, he might be a haole, but he paints like a Hawaiian, so that's what he's doing here.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I got access to a lot of stuff that was really, really special.
Yeah.
So it really enhanced my my experience and my connect to the place.
Yeah. And for anybody who doesn't know, Hana, it's on the island of Maui.
Maui, right.
And to get there is
they have a bumper. They have a bumper sticker that says "I survived the road to Hana."
Yeah,
it's a rainforest on a hairpin road, coastal road that is very high up on cliffs, and it's and when it rains, massive trees fall down.
Yes, yes.
So it's a Jurassic Park experience without the critters, but the drama is there when the weather kicks up.
Yeah, I drove it, and it's exactly as you say. It's what I felt like I was in a Jurassic world, like another world, completely. Yeah. And in a Jeep on some of those roads, and they're not really roads. Some areas of it didn't feel like a road. It was like a
just a creek bed. Yeah,
yeah. It's so beautiful. I mean,
very beautiful. Yeah.
And to live there, I can only imagine, or to be there for a period of time, because ours was just to drive in, eat, drive out.
Right. Well, it was a great gift to have that chapter. It was terrific.
Yeah. You've also been in the Caribbean, other islands in the Caribbean that you've lived there, stayed there.
Lived there. Yeah. I mentioned the fundraiser I did for Dominica. At the depot. When I arrived there in 78, I guess it was January 78. It was 8 months before independence was going to be declared there. And I had just been living 6 months in St. Bart's, which was, a very different kind of West Indies island. It had a certain glamour and a certain special quality that was not necessarily West Indies oriented, but it was a circumstance of a unique island that was French and
St. Bart's.
St. Bart's.
At what time period was this?
I got there in 77.
Oh, okay.
And in fact,
that was before it became the Island of the Stars, or
well, it was burgeoning with that. In fact, that's the cover of my book here. Is that's St. Bart's? That's Gustavia.
Oh, yeah. I love that spot. That's one of my wife and I's favorite area. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So that's what it looked like back in 77.
Wow.
And so,
my gosh.
So it was there was a glam factor for sure, but.
I got chills because that is one of our favorite. That's where she wants to go for her. She got a big birthday coming up in May, and that's where she wants to go. And we just there's a restaurant back there that the shopping there is great, and the restaurants are great.
No, and to get there back in 77 was unbelievable because it was.
Well, even to get there now on that little plane.
Oh yeah, I know,
I can't imagine that.
But the core group of people there, the players, were all interesting. I mean, I got a telegram sent to me. In fact, it was by that writer friend from Key Waden. He sent me a telegram, blonde American painter, and that was the address, and it got to me immediately.
Really?
Yeah. So
right?
yeah.
Wow.
But when I got to Dominica, it was there was.
So you were here first.
I was here first for 6 months, and then I went to Dominica because I really wanted to paint the West Indies, the real island life. And
Dominica was a French island too?
Actually, it was an English island between two French islands, which gave it a certain isolation, a certain, and it wasn't known for its beaches. It didn't have a golf course, but it was the most West Indies of the islands of the Caribbean. So that was the idea, the point. And the fact that I arrived there 8 months before independence gave me the determination, you know what? I've got to do something for this special island. So I started an art cooperative there. So knowing that they need to show the art of this island when independence came. And so I did that. and it was very special to get to know this island. It's a spectacular. It's called the Nature Island of the West Indies, and so I was there, and then I was called back to the States with a family emergency back the month after independence.
Mm.
And as it happens, my wife was so sick of me telling stories of my favorite island of the West Indies as Dominica, and I'm not taking her there. We finally went last February, which was very special. And we went there and loved it. Now her complaint was, why couldn't you have taken me here when I was 40? Because it's a hiking island.
Oh, is it really?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's cloud forests above the rainforests and
wow.
boiling lakes, and just a remarkably rich culture and
a lot
and
different
story.
than St. Bart's, because St. Bart's seemed to be
yeah.
rocky or volcanic almost.
Yeah. There's there's waterfalls and parrots here. Yeah. So the biggest parrot in the world is there.
Really?
The Cicero.
Wow.
On the Dominican flag that was raised from the British back in in 78. So in going back there, it was interesting. I had and it was wonderful that one of the ministers of culture that was there became a dear friend. He put a painting of mine of Trafalgar Falls in the kiosk of Trafalgar Falls with all these photographs of the years that falls changed. There was only one painting, and that was my painting that was put there by Alwyn Bully. And we were there 3 days after Carnival when there was a memoriam float at Carnival, one a tribute to Alwyn Bully, the other to Earl Etienne, the first student that became part of my my co-op for independence.
Oh, isn't that amazing?
So it was... anyway, for not having as direct a consistent time there, I was able to set up a program where I did a talk. The money I got from the talk has gone to coral restoration of Dominica, and so that's what I've set up there for the for my return gift to the island.
Yeah.
So anyway, you do what you can do.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. You've left your you touched them in a way that lived on even after you.
That's
left
what was nice, because it's a very, very special island.
What would you say? So I notice in this industry a lot. Now, I'm not a stylist myself, even though I'm in the business, but I see so many young students, kids, who love to do hair, or they're passionate about hair. It's an expression. It's an art expression. They just use a different canvas. Sure. And they often have to struggle with their parents who, have a college fund set up for them to go to be, get some type of 4-year degree. But this art is inside them that they just, have to always fight against, it seems like, to be able to turn it into the passion, to have their passion be what they do as a career. What would you say to that? There's this budding artist in them, but the parents and society has this 4-year degree pathway for them that you need to go do this. And I see it all the time where, sometimes they'll end up, doing what the parents wish for them and go to a year, 2, 3, sometimes complete college, but it's really just not in their soul. It's just not in them. And this incredible artist is there. What would you say? And that's how I equate it anyway to our business, because there's a form of art there too. But for any art form at all, what advice would you give to somebody who's in that space?
Well, when I first came here in Naples, there was a real surprise gallery, the Harmon Gallery.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was Foster Harmon set up that gallery. And in fact, I think it was when Julius Fleischmann bought 3rd Street to create a certain tone and tenor for the commercial of commercial street of 3rd Street. He gave Foster Harmon, who was based out of Sarasota at the time with the gallery, 2 years free rent to bring his high-end museum caliber gallery to Naples.
That was the first. Wow.
That was the first.
Wow. I didn't
And
know that.
so,
I remember that. but
Well, I mean, it wasn't the first gallery, but it was the first move to take things up a notch. And so Foster was he was a very wise and cultured guy, and I had gone to art school, but it wasn't one of the accredited big gun art schools, not one of the schools that with an affiliation with that got me instant entree to museum situations. They gave you the fundamentals, you had to work it out. And that's what I did. But what Foster said was, listen, Paul, pick 10 of your favorite artists of the age and ask and send a self-addressed envelope to them, to their studios, and get a 15-minute interview with any of them you can. Just talk with an artist that you appreciate, admire, and if at all possible, spend time, apprentice, but that kind of an education, taking it to the next level, would be much more valuable to you than going to some university at this stage of the game. You're a capable painter, but you need mentoring in the ways of the artist sensibility.
Yeah.
So I wrote out 10 of my favorite artists with a self-addressed envelope and did all the homework I could with my limited means. And so I wanted that. I saw the wisdom of that, speaking with, talking to, being advised by someone who is where I want to be. However, I didn't get one response. In fact, when I was up in Captiva about 20 years ago or so, 25 years ago, Robert Rauschenberg, went by on his bike, and then he kind of twirled around and said, "You mind if I take a shot and use it?" I said, "Yeah, sure, you can take a shot and use it." And so he takes the shot, and I said, "So Robert, back 30 years ago, when I first came to town, to Naples, I realized that I needed to talk to the artists of the day that I wanted to talk to about taking things another step, the next step. And so I sent you and 9 other guys, 9 other artists, a letter saying, with a self-addressed letter. And basically, he said, "Oh yeah, 30 years ago, huh? What happened?" I said, "Well, not one of you guys sent the letter back." So he just said, so he just kind of reached over, pinched me in the ass and said, "You should have sent a picture," and then took off on the bike.
That's great.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, I think back to my father talking about when he was, becoming a style, or wanted to become the best stylist that he could be. It was a similar situation where he went to a school that was, got him what he needed to get the license, and to go work. The recommendation at the time was to go work with somebody who, even if it's for free, who's going to teach you the ropes and mentor you or be your mentor for it. So he found this guy in the inner city of Philadelphia, which is about a 30-minute drive from where he was, that he went to work with. And the guy was, I don't remember the name. I know my sister would know who he was, because in the day this was pre Vidal Sassoon. This was late 60s, when women were still doing the roller sets, and they do 20 or 30 roller sets a day. And before Vidal Sassoon came in and kind of transformed the industry and turned it into like this geometric haircut where they didn't need to put rollers in at all. They
Mhm.
were, get rid of the rollers. And he went to work with this guy who really drilled him, worked him really hard, but gave him the foundation of which he loved, which was great haircutting.
Yeah.
And then I remember after we had moved here, and the money was in the roller sets because the women would come in once a week, sometimes twice a
Sure.
week, and get the roller sets, and you do 20 or 30 of those a day, and you had this repeat person who'd come in 100 times a year, or 50 times a year at least. Roller sets was the bread and butter, and we at that time I had been working with him in the 80s, and he never liked the look of the roller because it was the same look all the time. And at the time he started to say, that's an old lady look, and women don't want to look like an old lady. So he had this, he said, well, we're doing a lot of the old lady look, and people are going to figure out that that's, if somebody says, where do you get your hair done? They're going to say, Robert of Philadelphia. Well, do you want the old lady look? So he had this vision or this idea that we can't do them anymore. We have to stop. We're going to have a burn the roller party, and we're never going to do them anymore.
The juice can. Didn't they have orange juice cans with the rollers? That was
it was just this. It's so many of them. I remember all over the salon. We used to use them we used to take a wiffle ball bat and hit them with them. And upset a lot of people because he just made this declaration that we're not going to do them anymore.
Yeah, wow,
and a lot of people were really upset about it. And I was worried because I was working in the back of the house with the finance part of it, and I was worried we were going to lose a lot of money because that was kind of the bread and butter point. And there were a lot of upset husbands who were like, "You're upsetting my wife, and she wants this done." And he said, "Well, this is the look we want. The look we want to create, and probably which most people want don't even know that they want it." And he had the foresight to say, we're going to get rid of those. The same way, had I known as a kid, I didn't know, because feeding me was his problem, not mine as a kid. I didn't have to worry about it, but he wasn't worried about it. My mother was, on the other hand, worried about how we're going to eat, but he always knew that he could at least fish. If nothing else, we'd eat off that anyway. I have some rapid fire, this has been so fascinating for me because I've learned so much, and didn't even need to ask any generic questions because you're just so insightful as to what I really wanted to capture for the community for this area. These kind of rapid fire questions, especially as an artist. So, do you have a favorite color?
Well, when I first came to Florida on the ship, I was asked designated as the crew member that had to get certified as a diver. So it was up to me to get certified, and my one of my dives for certification was at Pennycamp down Key Largo. And you can go to Key West or you can go to the Keys, and you can see the color of the water, and it can be very nice. And it can be average, and it can be spectacular, then it can be average. Well, the day I went the first time to the Keys, the color was spectacular. And the moment I saw that emerald green, it just became one with the love of not only the color, but the feeling, the emotion, and the geography.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
There is something. Now that you mentioned that, because we would spend summers in the Keys, and there's nothing like that water there. It is something to see. It's just, and the shades sometimes, the different depths of the water, and you see it. Yeah, just when you get on that 7 Mile bridge, we used to stay at there was a campground on Long Key, right before one of the bridges, and it was just the summers we'd spend there, and that water, that clear, beautiful water, and just seeing the barracuda and the parrotfish and the beautiful colors. It just reminds me so much, and it's still that way. That's what I love, because the water is still just so special. Yeah, that's a good one. I never even considered that in the palette of color, but I think that really is just it reminds me of that the days there, because it was a big part of my youth growing up here. Anyway, the Keys, we go.
That'd be fun.
Lobstering.
It's not America anymore. It's
not at all. Yeah. How about a favorite artist or most inspiring artist?
Well, one of my favorite artists that is living now is David Hockney, a Brit, who just has had a wonderful career, and has evolved beautifully, and has been a great example for an artist who has on his quest for his creative process has tackled, mastered, and tackled more and more different ways of creativity with his art, with his painting, with theater, with stage sets, with photography. He's just a brilliant inspiration, and he's an artist that's living today. He's great. As far as a favorite painter of all times, there's not just one. It just kind of, you wake up one day and it's, oh God, I love the I love the wonderful spirit of Toulouse-Lautrec, of Paris, in that day and age. I love some of the classicist artists, Delacroix, but and some of the impressionists, post-impressionists, Gauguin. I've been very lucky to have had a wonderful appreciation and different periods of loving this direction of where the art goes and the painting goes, or this direction. So it's been fun to have so many great minds to kind of pull from as I go through life collecting favorite people or creations or images that have been done through history, and it's a great life when you're living and breathing it, to have to take things and assess things going forward, because there's so much wonderful talent to consider and to muster in yourself. Okay, what's the next important thing to do?
Your book, which I now realize would be so great to have in each of our salons, because we're coming up on our 45th anniversary. Mom and Dad opened it in 1980, so we're coming up on it. So we're not far behind you. Yeah. But your book captures a lot of so much. I think it's a great table book that should be in every home in Naples. Really, where can we get that?
Well, you can buy it from me. I don't think there's any place that sells it anymore.
Online.
Online, yeah.
From
me, yeah. Just call and come over. I have a charming old Florida property that's old cottages, and it's under the big banyan tree right by the pier. So it's a fun place to visit. I have that book. I did another collaboration with a couple, the Lairs, and that was the beach cottage book, and that was the provenance of the beach homes of Naples and their story.
Wow. Oh, really?
And it was quite a successful book. In fact, it went through 3 printings, and the Historical Society was the beneficiary of it. Unfortunately, it was on every coffee table of every beach house in Naples. And when Hurricane Ian came, so everybody lost their book. And unfortunately, it was so popular that online, it's $400 now. So it's really a sought after book. It's a lot of money. And as it happens, my wife and I are coming out with a new book. We've been somewhat stalled and delayed with COVID, with Ian, and with a couple of other surprises that have kind of held us back from production. But we're now slated to come out with it for next fall. It's a centennial book, Centennial of Naples, but it coincides with my 50th year of being in Naples. We're using old engravings and postcards and photographs and my paintings and my stories. So it moves away from the standard canned history of Naples.
Yeah.
But as you can tell with my interview, I've had a unique entree into the scene here, and to be able to tell with my paintings and images the story, along with the other part of the story that is important, but it's my history that I choose to pivot from. It's it's the one that I think would be most interesting to people who are just looking for a breezy but profound image, story, history.
Yeah.
So that'll be coming up next year.
Looking forward to that. Okay, next year. Okay, so we're gonna stay tuned and communicate to people as that comes around. Wonderful. Because we'd love to not only see it but share it with people too, because I think it's really fascinating for people to. You are so full of so much of what people can appreciate about what this charm of this area, and you've preserved it so well, and you've spoken it so well, and not only this area but so many beautiful parts of the world too. Which I think is so fascinating, and I certainly appreciate you taking time for us and sharing what you've done and what you've created. Oh, there's also a calendar, so it's the beginning of the year. It's 2025,
yeah, right.
beginning of the year. So we have to. Make sure people are. Now, where can people get that too? Because I think that's great. It's a great way to start the year.
Sure.
All over it.
We have it at Paper Merchant.
Oh, okay. Another long timer. Yeah,
right.
Paper Merchant. Yeah,
great. The Georges, and Bruno's and Regatta, I think, and a couple of other places downtown. And but again, my house. So just giving me a call, this could be our last year. I'm not sure. And for instance, this happens to be the alley between 12th Avenue South and Broad. This is the new annex museum to Palm Cottage that is opening in February this coming month. And so, but what?
So 12th and Broad. So that is Broad is east-west. So 12th would be street before the. What's the
12th is where the pier. 12th goes into the pier.
Into the pier. Okay, gotcha.
That's 12th and Broad.
12th and Broad. Okay.
And so and basically, since they did this, they put this hedge all the way up and a fence, and you can't see this anymore. So it's just kind of I'm trying to catch things as things evolve. For instance, my last year's calendar was Broad Avenue South. The 3 cottages on Broad were the most intact architectural series of homes from the beach. Thinking that who knows what's going to happen with these beautiful cottages.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in September they tore down the middle cottage. So as I go along, I'm just kind of painting the scene as it evolves.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned your home and people going there or calling you to stop by there. Where is that? Because I think that's a charming little.
Well, it's a corner of 12th and Gordon Drive, and so. It's under the banyan tree, and so just giving a call to make sure we're there, and usually we are. So that's we're happy to oblige.
Yeah, that's really special. I mean, to have that because it is. My wife and I drove by it this past weekend. And of course, looking at all the changes in the area, because you could go away for a week and come back in a week and not recognize Naples so quickly.
That's right.
How much things are changing, but the charming quaintness and the it just to me embodies what I remember of Naples so much.
Well, right, and when right after the hurricane happened, and we were so devastated, people drove by and they would come up to say, "Are you going to save it?" Yeah, oh yeah. But they would say, "So much is gone. So much is devastated." The first place we wanted to look at to see if it was going to still be there was our place. So it was like they were just touching a part of what they loved about their home, and to make sure that was still intact. And so that's what's as caretakers of this very special property, that's what's important for us, to do what we can to make sure that is available and accessible to generations to come. So that's a big responsibility that we're working on right now.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. I didn't think of it in that way, that it does preserve for so many what we know of this area. It just keeps it in our hearts, like that's it right there. And you're upholding that special place that we have. I loved, and I really appreciate the story about your mom seeing your portrait of Lincoln and the emotion that you saw in her. And that just kind of brings it full circle, because as me having the privilege to work with artists every day, and, they think from an artist's side of the brain, they talk about the left brain and right brain, and they just to watch their reaction. My father used to always say the gift or the payment was the love and the gratitude that somebody would express when they looked at themselves in the mirror after he was done creating what he created. And that was what gave him, his fulfillment in everything. And, and you seeing that as a 5-year-old, seeing the impact that it had on your mom, this out of body human that nobody knew what you were doing living there. And here you created this incredible piece that moved your mother in a way. And that's what this industry is. And I'm grateful for it. And I'm so honored that I got a chance to spend time with you and get to know you and the history and what you've provided for us in the community. So one of the true legends and pioneers of our community. I can't thank you enough for spending time with us this morning. And we owe you a haircut too. Okay, you got great hair, so that's on us next time. Okay?
Terrific! Good. I'll save myself for that.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
honored to have you. Thanks again, man.
Yep.
Appreciate it.